So I guess we'll start with who you are, where you were born, where you grew up.
Okay, I was born in Moncton. Father was stationed there during the war, and moved back to Stanley for about 6 months, where my mother's from, and then we moved to Fredericton, and basically been here ever since, except for a short stint out west in the Air Force. So it's been basically Fredericton, and this is Devon, South Devon actually. So if you want a distinction.
So what was your career?
Mostly, once I got hired on after amalgamation of the city, the 5 communities around Fredericton, I went to work with the City of Fredericton Recreation Department, and moved up to assistant director, and I had 30 years with the city, and a lot of activities and so on, summer programs, and latter years it was mostly doing projects to build parks and recreation facilities and the trail system, and we initiated that through our department in public parks and trees. So that's where I spent most of the time.
Mm-hmm. Who has been the biggest influence on your life? If you can think of anybody.
Well, family-wise, probably my father. We did a lot of things in the younger years and so on, but he spent a lot of years with the provincial government when Louis Robichaud came in. And then later on in 66, he was appointed to the Senate. So there was a lot of influence. Grew up in a political family. So we're watching with much interest with what's going on here today. So it's a tad bit of chaos, but
yeah. What are you most proud of in your life?
Probably family.
Yeah.
We've been blessed with, good family relationships and so on. Like any family, we have our ups and downs, but we have 2 girls who have both moved on and are married and have done well in their careers, and we still have a very strong relationship through. We have a family cottage which everybody participates in, and we've evolved about 25 years ago, I think, into a family fishing trip every year that everybody takes off and goes, and we head to the woods for almost a week, and it keeps the bonds tight, and this is a place where none of the electronics will work, so that helps.
Yeah.
Where is your fishing trip? Where do you guys go for?
For the family fishing trip, it's on the northwest Miramichi. It's, it's up at the high end, just above the Crown Reserve waters and so on. Fortunate enough to be in a group of 9 that have a lease on a piece of water that we can go to. So, and I get the opportunity now and then to go other places, the Upselquitch and the Restigouche. So it's evolved into a fairly substantial time use.
We're both from Miramichi.
Oh yeah?
Yeah.
What part?
Nelson, for me.
Okay, yeah.
I'm from Newcastle.
Okay. Still Newcastle to you, isn't it?
Yeah.
Did you have a nickname, and if so, how did you get it?
Not really.
No.
No.
Jim.
Yeah, no, I didn't have a nickname growing up, through sports and everything else, but not.
What is your best memory from your childhood?
Oh.
I'm picking the hard ones.
Yeah, I don't know if I have a best memory, but a lot of good memories. We were, we grew up in Devon here. We were fortunate, we had the run of the place, and there was not a lot of worries about where you went and so on. If you're home by dark, it was okay. And went to meals. We all the fellas and the gals in our area pretty well all of them played sports at the school level, and it was just a generally a good childhood. And I can't think of, there's some incidents that happen now and then, but I don't think there's any one thing. Yeah, my grandkids have gone through Devon Middle School now, but when that opened, it was grades 1 to 9. And when it opened in 1950, we went to grade 1 at that school. So, and they've refurbished it 2 or 3 times, and it's still got, I think, 6, 7, and 8, isn't it? That's in there now. At the middle school. So.
Well, my elementary and middle school, they both got tore down this year. So it's cool that you still have that to share with your grandkids.
Yeah. Well, yeah, it was. We thought it was a great school. We didn't have had a nice gymnasium, but not a lot of outside facilities. I did get an opportunity when I worked with the city through a special grant system that we managed to build a play field in front of the school.
Oh, really?
Through the city to put it in because it was just a gravel field. So we had that done, and they've done some new improvements to it just recently, and so it was. There's another elementary school down at the other end of the street here, which was when they built Gibson Neal out just at the top of Marysville. They closed the one down here, and it's been purchased by the Baptist Church, and they run a Christian school in it. And they just announced this weekend that they're going to acquire the farm property at the end of the street and take it all down and build a middle school, high school, a Christian school, and to have students go there. And it's not a free school; you have to pay to go there.
Cool. That's a private school.
Yeah.
We never had any of that in Mercy. That's so cool.
Yeah. Well, it's the first for around here too. We just and there's a new Francophone school right out in the back. What used to be the field where they kept the cows and cut hay and so on. I can't pronounce the name of it, but it's grades. It will be grades 1 to 8. But I think it's only grades 1 to 5 right now. But as the kids grow, they're going to fill up the rest of the school, and they've got a large area around the school. I think there's 11, 12 acres and a play field and kindergarten, preschool, playgrounds, and so on. So it's a definite advantage in the community.
How did you meet your wife?
My wife. Probably through the dances at Devon School in grade 8. Yeah, I was in grade 8. She was a year ahead of me.
You were 15 and I was 16.
Yeah.
And
So.
I'm older than he is.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was, was in grade 9 and you were in grade 8.
Yes.
I don't know. Yeah.
Yeah, and we. Well, then in the day, that was people went together, and we started going together on February 14th, 1957. So I guess we were a couple for 7 years before we got married. So we've been, and we just last year we had our 50th anniversary. So it's a lot of water under the bridge.
So how did you know that she was the one?
Oh,
We didn't.
yeah.
Good luck.
It just evolved. And in those times, the couples that went together is what they called it then. Some of them lasted, some of them didn't. And Sharon went away to nursing school in St. John, and 3 years down there. And I started university and then left and joined the Air Force for a while and went through the pilot program to part of that. And when that was completed, came back here, went to work, and then, gosh, when was it? 68, I think, went back to university and finished my degree in, well, then it was physical education, it's now kinesiology. When we finished, we had our physical education degree plus our certificate 4 teaching certificate, because we had to spend 3 months to 4 months practice teaching, and I did mine in Ormocto. So it was an extra thing to have on. Now, when I finished, I spent, nine and a half months beating on doors trying to find work because there just wasn't a lot of work around.
Yeah.
And so it took a while. And then when the city amalgamated in 73, they hired a lot of new people in late 73, 74, and I started in 74 with the city and worked 30 years with them.
Mm-hmm.
So it's been an evolving process, and we've been, well, Sharon's been a good part of it because a lot of the time I did a lot of work. I didn't believe much in holidays, unfortunately, which is not a good thing for a lot of years. So she spent a lot of time in the truck with me doing what she called the curb and gutter tour to check out facilities. And we took a lot of raw land in the city and turned it into parks and playgrounds and the trails and so on. So it's
So like the outdoors was a big part of your life.
yes,
Always, yeah.
yeah. Well, when we were kids, my father and a couple of the others, so the chaps in our neighborhood, would used to take us out fishing in particular, but I've been hunting since, gosh, I was 10, I suppose. Haven't done much in the last 10, 12, 15 years, but up until that, we always, hunted. Didn't do a lot, but shot a few birds. And so.
Do you have any memories that stick out from that when you were hunting?
Yeah, I got a scar on my eye here from the shotgun backfired. But no, just a lot of, it's good to be out in the woods, and we've got a fabulous province here. You can go anywhere and find something that's great to look at and be in. So.
Yeah, exactly.
What kind of things did you hunt? Did you just hunt birds or?
Well, hunted deer a lot. I've only shot 2, I think, all the time. I tramped the woods for years and never had the opportunity to do that. But and we did a lot of bird hunting because it was easy and it was a good thing to do. We could even do it, after classes. You could scoot out for a couple hours and a lot of the stuff out here, people hunted right out here, 200 yards from here. There was no housing or anything in those days, so you could tramp around the whole neighborhood.
Yeah.
So
Were you ever lucky enough to get your moose license?
yeah, I got my moose. Gosh, when was it? 6 years ago, 2012, and I just got another license this year. And there were 9 of us at a camp, and 2 of us had licenses, and you can have a second shooter on your license.
Yeah.
And the young fellow was second shooter on the first license. They got one about 950 pounds, big bull. We saw a couple. Unfortunately, a little slow getting out of the 4-wheeler we were in, like a side by side.
Yeah.
And you can't travel carrying weapons loaded. So by the time you get out and get loaded, they're just moving through the bush, and so away they went. And there was a nice calf that came along, stood in the middle of the road for 5 or 6 minutes, just stood there and looked at us. But we figured with the big bull we had enough meat. We didn't need to be shooting another one. So yeah, so it was. I did get one moose.
Good.
What were your parents like?
Typical parents of the day. We're not even baby boomers because we were born in 43, 44, which is, they start the baby boomers at 45. So they had the experience of living as youngsters through the Depression and then the war years. So it was interesting. They were pretty well let us do what we wanted as long as it was in reason. But my father was a strong disciplinarian, and that I think a lot of that came from the fact of the war years, that what they had to do and so on. He wasn't overseas, but he traveled all over the Atlantic provinces with an audit crew. And Mom was from Stanley, grew up in a family up there. She lost her father. She was quite young, I think 18 or 19, got killed in a hunting accident. And so they grew up in Stanley, and that's where my father met her. He was working in the bank up there in 1939, so long time ago. So
For us.
yeah, so my mother had the grade 11 at Stanley. And she did take a home economics course that was run, I think it was out in McAdam at the time. My father went through what they had then, the streams in high school was the commercial class. And the bookkeeping, typing, script writing, which they don't even teach anymore now. My granddaughter is in grade 6 and they don't even do cursive writing. So it's, you know, when those things get fried by the satellite sun flares, somebody's going to have to come along and write some notes.
Okay, back to another question about your wife. How did you propose?
Oh gosh. You were in Dalhousie, weren't you? But she took a year of postgraduate nursing at Dalhousie University in public health. And we got married shortly after she came back from that.
It wasn't a big deal. We'd gone together for so long.
Yeah.
You asked him about parents. We did pretty well what our parents told us to do back in those days.
Yeah.
And we wanted to be married much earlier. And they said no, kept saying no.
Finish your education or
Finish your education.
get a job.
Yeah.
And that was the
get
first
a
question.
job and so on.
Yeah.
And the purpose
and
of
the-
the girls' education back then, I didn't want to go beyond high school. I really wasn't a good student. And my mother insisted that I get an education so I would have something to fall back on if I got married and my husband died. That was the attitude back in those days.
Yeah, to the point that her father, the first question he asked me when we told her we were getting married was, how do you expect to support her? As I wasn't working at the time. So,
Yeah.
So it's
So do you have any advice for younger couples?
that's a loaded question. But, I think for the younger people today is if they can spend enough time to get to know each other and to get away from electronics for a while. It's all persuasive, especially with the younger kids. My grandson's just gone into high school, and he's got that thing in front of him most of the time in the waking hours. To the point we just got him glasses. We didn't. His parents got him glasses because he had such bad eye strain that he was having headaches. So it's manifested itself in that, and it's really taken the knocking out of him because he can't play hockey. He's made the hockey team until he gets clearance from the concussion people because he didn't know whether he had a hit or not. So, but advice-wise,
Patience.
yeah, a lot of patience. Yeah, and
And the fact that the romantic love is there for a while. Enjoy it. It doesn't last forever. You can't keep that going for 50 years. So, wouldn't you say?
oh yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely.
And I think that
Yeah.
that's what happens with a lot of young people. As my daughter says, well, one or the other didn't cook the eggs right on Sunday morning, so they've separated and divorced. That's a bit of an exaggeration, but you've got to stick with it and be serious about it, I think. Right?
Yeah.
I mean, it's well, I shouldn't say it's very easy. Divorce is not easy, but a lot of people think it is. If you just walk away from whatever the problem is, rather than sitting and solving and communication.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of what people call baggage today, but things that hang on. And if you have kids or anything else, it's even more difficult.
Yeah.
You know, there's a lot of, just as an aside, there's a lot of, seems to be a lot of new apartments and everything being built. Our population in Fredericton hasn't increased. And I asked a real estate person when I sat on the planning committee after I worked for 9 years. And I asked him why they were building all the apartments, and he said divorces. Parents are keeping the family home, and each of the parents want to have a different apartment, and they keep the kids in their home. So there's 3 family units going when before there was 1.
Wow.
And it's crazy, and it's expensive.
Yeah.
And so it's
How many kids do you have?
Two girls,
2 girls? What are their names?
Sarah and Jenny.
And how many grandkids?
2. My daughter Jenny has 2, a boy and a girl.
Mhm.
And my daughter Sarah has 3 horses, 2 dogs, and 3 cats.
It sounds like me.
Every 10 years we had a family picture taken. Always had a large one made for the middle of our living. We're running out of walls because we don't want to get rid of the old ones.
Yeah.
So we're starting to run, and we're due to have another picture taken. The infant in this picture back here is now 11 years old. So it's time to do another family.
Yeah, we're due.
I like that idea though, every 10 years.
Mhm.
That'd be neat.
Yeah. Well, we're lucky because both our kids are in this area with their families. And some good friend of ours, one of their kids is in Australia. So when they want to go see them, it was $12,000, and it's a 5 or 6 week trip because you're not going to fly down and stay for the weekend. So we've been fortunate that way, and it allows us as now grandparents, like we end up ferrying kids to hockey rinks or soccer fields or
Yeah,
whatever they're doing. So
exactly.
it's a real advantage. Well, we think it is anyway.
Did you ever have any pets?
Yes. Yeah, we had, I don't know how many cats. We lost quite a few of them. We lived right on Gibson Street at the corner of Gibson and Barker. That was the first bridge on Barker Street to Barker's Point, and all the traffic came through there, and none of these side roads out here now. They had to come straight down Gibson Street, so all the traffic, we lost a lot of cats in traffic. And we had a couple of dogs, English setters, I think. Probably my younger brothers, more than they were mine. And had those for a few years. And we had pets here. Sharon always had a dog when she was growing up, and then we had I guess it was a Heinz 57 model. It was
Best dog we ever had.
yeah, it's about 16 years old. It lasted. It was a long haul. So, and we've had a few cats here. Lost the last one to an owl, we think. And there are hawks and eagles around the area and so on. So if you let them run loose, which everybody did, took your chances, and they took their chances. So.
Exactly.
What are some of your favorite hobbies that you do now?
Well, I spend time at the camp. My father purchased a piece of property, a small camp out back of Stanley, and we've been up there since 1964. So it's evolved over the years. We spend a fair amount of time out there, and fishing. Do quite a bit of fishing in the summer, and for quite a few years after working, when I was working, I didn't have a whole lot of hobbies, and I sat on the city's community planning committee. A couple of years after I retired, I put my name forth and sat on that committee for 9 years. So that was a monthly meeting that took a fair amount of time because you're assessing properties around the city and developments and so on. And it's a fun thing to do and very educational. You find out a lot about the city, what's happening, and who's doing things. I'm a pack rat. I've got more junk than I should have. That's going to be a problem from now on because we're in the position now to have to start looking at downsizing. And it's if there's anybody that's done it, it's quite difficult because we painted here, about 3 years ago, and I think all through the house, I think there's 91 pieces of stuff on the wall. A lot of it's just family pictures.
Yeah.
But, when you start moving things off and see them around here, there's some of them that one's very old, and those are quite new. In fact, that's our fishing camp there. So it's, you gather what you like, and when you're growing up, you, as a young family, you get things that you can afford to have. And a lot of it would just be basic prints. So, and, we were involved in, the whole family was in a way, with the Atlantic Salmon Federation dinners that they host here every year. And we participated in those, and some of the prints would be from that.
Mm-hmm.
They sell them, they auction them, they do them around. So, yeah,
You have
it's,
a few of those.
yeah. We got, well, I was involved as a youngster, as a server, I guess, or altar boy, or whatever they call it, in different churches, as the Anglican church we're involved in. And after, I think a couple years after we were married, I got back on the church committee, and I've been serving on committees ever since. So, and we're now into another rebuild. We're looking to do a rebuild, so that's taken a fair amount of time to do that.
Mm-hmm.
It's been a good portion of our lives, and it's a good solid thing to have. You know, people got to have support systems all around, and if you just think you're doing it on yourself, you're fooling yourself. Volunteered to work in the, we have an old cemetery that dates back to the mid-1800s over here.
Mm-hmm.
And I volunteered, I said I'd do it for a couple of years, and that was, I think, what?
1968.
So it's been a couple of years.
Yeah.
So, but it's extremely hard to find somebody to step up today to do that. They're not interested. You can hire commercial crews, but you pay right through the nose because it's a profit thing for them. So it's hard to. We've been fortunate the last few years to have through the federal summer jobs program. We've applied for a grant, and we've had a youngster that's been able to mow 35 to 40 hours a week that they've been doing mowing, landscaping, trimming, cutting bushes, all that sort of thing. So it's. And then the church has to provide the equipment and so on, of course, and make sure that it's a safe work environment.
Yeah.
So that takes up a fair amount of time. So, and more now, I'm slower getting around.
When not fishing, he's in the cemetery. He always said he'll spend more time with me after I'm dead, because I'll be over there underground and he'll be above ground.
It's funny.
Had a real good career with the city.
Yeah.
You know, come in after amalgamation, and there was so many deficiencies in the outlying areas compared to what the city of Fredericton had itself. And so we had the opportunity to work on a whole lot of projects to bring recreation aspects to play fields. And we worked very hard with the school system in Fredericton to get access to gymnasiums and play fields, to the point that the city did a lot of the maintenance on the play fields and some of the buildings. And the city put $1.25 million into the construction of Natchez Middle School. It was Natchez Junior High then, and changed the gymnasiums to a field house, built an outside ball field, and 2 more play fields over and above what they put in. And my grandkids are playing on them this year. So it's, comes full circle.
Yeah. Is that where you thought you'd end up being when you were younger, working for the city? Or?
Not really. I always wanted to work outdoors, and I had taken some testing, I guess, after I failed my first year of university. My father thought he'd spent enough, so he took me off for some testing to see what my aptitudes were. But I applied originally for the park system in the provincial government, and was not fortunate enough to get a job in a day. There was back in those days, a lot of it was very political, and unfortunately, my family background wasn't what was in the government at the time. And hopefully, when you people go out for jobs, you won't run into any of that. And,
An interesting item in your history, you've talked about your father and him being appointed to the Senate. But from what I can hear, you've never mentioned that he worked in the lead up to the program of equal opportunity.
Yeah, well, that's what he
did a lot of the footwork that Premier Robichaud
Yeah.
was the face that presented it. But he was one of the backroom people who
Yeah.
toured the province and
Yeah, he was actually the first full-time employee of the Provincial Liberal Party, and when they won, it was the 1960 election. That's when they brought in the program Vehicle Opportunity, and basically changed the social structure of the province at that time. And, probably use some tweaking right now to bring it back. So,
What kinds of lessons did your work life teach you?
patience. When you're working for an elected group like the city council, you can be very assertive, but you have to make sure that you will be willing to accept the fact that the people that were elected make the decisions. And quite a few people that you run into over the years just can't do that. They think that they should have their say in what goes on, but the councillors themselves, in their wisdom and the information they have, will make the final decisions. It's you have to learn to be very do your homework so that when it comes budget time, you can make your case for council to get the budgets, so that they will allow you to do the things that you feel because of your professional background and your schooling. We think in our aspect it would be through parks, recreation, and so on. Engineers, of course, be looking to do infrastructure and that sort of thing. So, and there's only so much money in the pot, and the councillors will divide it up. They have to make that. You have to make your case, and there's times that you just don't get on the list. So it's but patience is that, and the other, I guess, the other thing is learning to deal with people. The best thing you can do from day one is to be forthright and tell the truth. If you make a mistake or mess up, own up to it and say, look, I screwed up, take your knocks and move on. Try and cover something up, or especially in an elected area, they'll bury you. And it's just a matter of time before it happens.